Let's be honest, the prophetic gift is on display everywhere right now, but it's not always in the healthiest way. We've got accuracy without integrity. Someone calls out your birthday or your address, and yes, it's jaw-dropping. But gifting without character is a loaded gun in the wrong hands. Balaam was accurate, so was the slave girl with the spirit of divination in Acts 16. Accuracy alone doesn't prove authenticity. Integrity does. We've got showmanship, the "can I prophesy" hype. The crowd shouting "prophesy" like it's a football chant. Jeremiah wasn't yelling "can I prophesy?" He was saying, "Lord, I tried to quit, but your word burns like fire in my bones." Mature prophets don't audition for applause. They carry a burden. And then we've got manipulation and money hungriness. The Didache, a 1st century church manual, already warned, if a prophet says, in the spirit, "give me money," don't listen. That was nearly 2,000 years ago. Same tricks, new packaging. And yes, some people still point to 1 Samuel chapter 9. Saul and his servant wanted to consult Samuel and said, "What shall we bring the man of God? The bread in our sacks is gone, and there is no present to bring him." Back then, it was a cultural norm. If you want to see a seer, you brought a gift. Not as a prophetic entry fee, but as a gesture of honor and hospitality. But here's the shift. In the new covenant, the landscape changes. You don't need to chase a prophet with a gift in your hand to hear God. The Spirit is poured out on all flesh. Full-time ministers, yes, should be supported. Paul says those who preach the gospel should live by the gospel. But twisting Samuel's day into a root, you can't approach a prophet without sowing a seed? That's not Bible. That's manipulation. So then, that was a cultural expectation of hospitality. Now, generosity is biblical, but never as a prophetic paywall. We've also got a lack of maturity. Words shouted without wisdom. Secrets exposed for clout. Prophecy used to impress instead of edify. Nathan didn't embarrass David in public. He told a story that pierced his heart in private. That's maturity. We've got prophets judging prophets, and not in the biblical sense. Paul said, "Let the prophet speak and let the others wait." And that's accountability in community. But today, it's often turf wars and takedowns. My mantle is bigger than your mantle. That's not discernment. That's ego. And yes, we've also got titles without function. Now hear me. I'm not against someone calling themselves a prophet. Paul even said, if anyone thinks they're a prophet, in 1 Corinthians 14:37. The Bible doesn't shy away from the word. But in scripture, titles are never decorations, they were descriptions. Being called a prophet wasn't branding. It was fruit. It was function. So prophets in Ephesians 4 were gifts to equip the body, not ornaments for your bios. So the issue isn't the title itself. The issue is when the title runs ahead of the function. Better to grow into the calling than advertise a label that hasn't matured yet. In the end, fruit confirms the title, not the other way around. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. The desire for the prophetic is genuine. Who wouldn't want to sit in the sword of the Lord? Amos 3:7 says, "Surely the sovereign Lord does nothing without revealing his counsel, his sword, to his servants, the prophets." That word means the secret council chamber of the king. To hear God's whisper, to stand in his inner circle, to carry his heart. Of course, we all long for that. But desire alone isn't enough. We need guardrails. So here are some guardrails for the prophetic today. Scripture first. If the word contradicts the word, it's not God. Full stop. Fruit over the flash. Jesus says you will know them by their fruit, not their fireworks. Then it's community discernment. Prophecy should be weighed, not blindly swallowed. Lone rangers are usually dangerous. And then integrity over accuracy. A word that is 90% accurate but manipulates hearts is still false. Maturity in delivery. Private pain doesn't need public spectacle. Prophecy should redeem, not humiliate. And then the obvious, Christ-centeredness. Revelation 19:10, this testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. If it doesn't point people to him, it's missing the point. So here's the whole journey in one line. Old Testament prophets were covenant enforcers, national, judicial, heavy. New Testament prophets are Christ's gifts to the church, edifying, equipping, redemptive. Prophecy itself is for all believers, inspired speech that builds, comforts, and strengthens. And then immature prophets need patience. False prophets need exposing. Mature prophets need honoring. And today's prophetic culture, it needs guardrails. Because prophecy is not a circus act. It's not a cash grab. It's not a hype machine. It's a holy gift. And when it's carried with integrity, humility, and maturity, it reveals Christ and builds his body. So maybe instead of shouting, "Can I prophesy?" we should be praying, "Lord, let me stand in your counsel. And when you speak, let me carry it faithfully." That's the prophetic ministry. That's the journey from hype to holy, from noise to weight, from titles to true function. And that wraps this series. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for listening. God bless you. And I'll see you in the next series in October. Bye and God bless.